It would be good to gather some students together because, as we know, students are often at the sort of the forefront of the uses of technology. And we're taking a slightly different approach in that these four gentlemen that we have here with us are all representatives of some very well-run student organizations. And we'd like to talk to them about how their organizations use technology to function in the lack of sort of a physical space. And then sort of talk about how those technologies that are working successfully for them can translate, for better or worse, into a classroom environment. And then we'll open it up for questions, and hopefully we'll have some good dialogue going on. So I think we'd like to start just by having each panelist introduce himself and what organization that he'll be representing today.
Hi everyone, my name is Zang. I am a junior here in the College of Liberal Arts, and I'm here representing both the University Park Undergraduate Association, which is the student government here at the University Park, as well as the Liberal Arts Undergraduate Council, which is the student council within the College of Liberal Arts.
I'm Ogburn. I'm the overall technology chairperson for Penn State Dance Marathon. I'm a senior in College of Information Science and Technology.
I'm John Tecce. I'm a senior in SMEAL. I'm representing the Fraternal Coordination Committee.
Hi, I'm Kalikow. I'm a senior in the College of Liberal Arts, and I'll be representing the Penn State Journal of International Affairs today.
So one of the things we really want to highlight in each of these organizations is how they're using technologies to really facilitate their operation. So I thought we'd begin with John. You're going to be starting a week-long Fraternal campout on Monday.
My last one, yes.
Oh boy.
We're going for Nebraska.
Could you describe how you use technology to set up for a Fraternal campout?
Yeah, it's changed a lot since I got here. As a freshman, we did not really use technology at all for anything with Fraternal. And then it's gradually evolved into now we are extremely reliant on it. So every camp out begins by voting what we call the short list, which is essentially the list that kind of orders how groups sign in and how they eventually get their seats in the stadium. And that used to start by just whoever was at the stadium first, and then it was kind of like a who was next sort of thing, and it was a mess. So we started using Angel in 2010 for that. And we essentially just set up a Dropbox for each camp out. So for Nebraska, it'll be the Nebraska. And at the specified time, that Dropbox will appear. So one person for each group of up to 10 who is camping out will go on at, I think it's 7 p.m. on Monday is the time for this one. Dropbox will appear, they submit their name, and in the text it'll be the rest of their group. And then they hit submit, and that fills up our sign-in list. You know, as any assignment would be submitted.
Time down to the seconds, which is really helpful for us because we know they were. And then from there, we have them sign in at the stadium, which we use Google Docs for. We actually have a spreadsheet that shows every section, row, and seat in the student section. So we'll fill that out as we sign groups in for their seats. So that's been really important for us.
So you do that same set of actions every game?
Every single camp out. Yep.
What kind of responses do you get from the students who sign up for the Angel?
Initially, a lot of people were really nervous about it because the old system used to be able to control when you were at the stadium. If you wanted to be the first group, or you wanted to make sure you had front row seats, you would get there really early the day that you were supposed to sign in, and that's what eventually caused the problems that built up enough that we had to start using Angel. Now you're relying upon Angel, which is not always reliable, and campus internet, you never know what's going to happen with that. So it's people were nervous about it, but I think after this is a second full year of using the system, we got a lot of positive feedback. A lot of the groups that do it every week, there's probably 15 or so groups that do it every week. We're very concerned about, okay, well, we do this every week. We camped out for Eastern Michigan, we camped out for Indiana State. We should get some sort of priority for Alabama or Nebraska. What we found is that their priority has essentially just been they're familiar with the system. So even for Alabama, which we had 113 groups, which is the largest this year by far, the normal regular groups or whatever, the groups that do it every week, were still among the first just because they're familiar with the system. So they were initially nervous, but the feedback's been very positive, and I think everybody's really happy with how it turned out.
Has it made your job easier?
Much easier. We used to, this old system used to be, okay, is there anybody up in the stadium now? No. Go back in a half hour. So anybody up in the stadium now? It was kind of just like a surveillance. We had people hiding in bushes. Like, it was bad. And, you know, it would take all day. For Ohio State in 2009, we weren't allowed to put tents up until midnight on Monday night. People were there at 11 p.m. Sunday night to wait in line.
Wow.
So it got really out of hand. And now you have, you know, there's no sense of being in the stadium before 8 p.m. for a normal game. So, you know, it gives us a whole day to relax, essentially. And, you know, building up that list in a transparent way is really important for us as well, because everybody sees, okay, I'm fourth in that list. I was at 9 o'clock and 16 seconds, and the people behind me were at 9 o'clock and 18 seconds. So there's no, it puts us in a good position.
Sure.
Because it's transparent. Everybody can see, okay, this is when I was there. There's no debate.
Right. Angel is the impartial
Absolutely.
arbitrator.
Yeah. And that's never a bad thing to have people on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we can pivot, and what we'll probably do is come back at the end and take questions at once and let each of the panelists kind of describe a little bit more about each of their technologies.
How about John? Do you want to talk about either one or both of your organizations?
I can talk about both. I'll start with UPUA though, because it actually probably uses technology less so than the council.
And for people that aren't familiar with UPUA,
UPUA is the University Park Undergraduate Association. It's a collective organization that serves as the student government here for undergraduate students at University Park. It's sort of the counterpart to the Commonwealth campuses student government. But what UPUA does, we have a General Assembly meeting every Wednesday, and we have committee meetings throughout the week. But the key, I guess, facet of technology that we utilize is a website where all our legislation is, where we have a form for students to talk to us about their concerns. We have office hours posted there. We utilize Google Calendar to sort of display all of our meeting times, all of our office hours, just to engage students in a way that provides them with information about our agendas, our minutes, what our committees are doing, and other initiatives. We also utilize Twitter in terms of outreaching to students, engaging them, publicizing what we're doing. And the Liberal Arts Undergraduate Council does a lot of these same things, just in terms of we utilize the entire Google suite in terms of spreadsheets, Google Docs, Google Calendar. A lot of us are on Google Plus because that's a great way for us to interact with each other, both professionally and socially. I think that's a good way to engage with students. Personally, I love Google Plus. I know I've talked about that. The Liberal Arts Undergraduate Council really utilizes all of the Google products. We also utilize Blogger, Flickr, and WordPress in terms of we have a blog ourselves, and we also work with the college blog to sort of work together, produce articles, blog posts for students from the College of Liberal Arts, just to get them aware of what the college is doing, what the council is doing, and other events that are happening in the college. I think that's it.
So UPUA has really increased its use of social media.
Yes.
And that's cool. So now if you log into Twitter while the UPUA meeting's going on, you can see a pretty extensive hashtag. Has that kind of technology changed how UPUA operates?
I think it has. I hope it has. We have both a press secretary now that actively tweets during the meetings, and we also have press coverage from places like Office State and the Daily Collegian, which basically create a live, ongoing conversation on Twitter about how the meeting is going and what we're discussing. I know this is utilized in classrooms a lot, but it works perfectly for us because it allows us to see, what we're saying is going on Twitter, and we're getting feedback from students who couldn't make the meeting, but still are able to have their voices and input heard and considered while we're discussing initiatives and problems.
so is your press secretary then kind of monitoring the feed during the meeting and reporting out on that?
Yes, both our press secretary and I think a lot of people in the the assembly who are talking. But the press secretary is both alerting us to what's going on, and we, as students, all have smartphones or iPads and are monitoring what people are tweeting back at us. So Twitter is an incredibly engaging tool, and does really work. It's not that distracting, and it's a lot more public than it would be texting during a meeting. It's actually broadcasting out what you're thinking, what you're saying, what's going on.
So you mentioned Google Docs. Do you use that for like legislation or other?
Yes, I personally take great advantage of Google Docs when I need to collaborate on writing legislation or talking about a problem. I personally use Google Docs extensively because it allows me to revise and create, allows for others to make additions to that, and I can see where people are changing things, what they're changing, and it allows us to chat while we're doing those revisions. So if we can't physically meet in one place, Google Docs allows us to create a document, to generate a document with that same level of coherency and cooperation.
Can I ask a question to everyone? Do you ever get pushback from other members of your student board when you might get to collaborate with a Google Doc versus a Word file or something like that?
Everyone seems pretty cooperative. I kind of understand the need for it, at least for us.
Yeah, I don't experience any pushback. Some people prefer emails back and forth, but it's sort of just a constant peer pressure to get them in the sort of, on the latest, most efficient way to communicate.
So are there a lot of emails exchanged in LUC and UUA?
LUC, no. LUC is very good about Google Docs. We have a list of ongoing events and initiatives that we want to do. We we host our constitution on a Google Doc. Both VQA and LUC are very good about Google Docs. Like across all the organizations I'm in, Google Docs are utilized across the board. I don't think I'm involved in any organization that doesn't really utilize them.
Now, I know, well, I guess we'll pivot over to Evan for a minute. Do you want to describe JIA a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. The Penn State Journal of International Affairs is an organization that was started last November between myself and 3 of my friends and colleagues, and it's the university's first and only undergraduate journal revolving around international affairs. Every semester we publish one journal of about 5 to 7 articles from both Penn State and other universities across the country that talk about anything relating to international affairs. It can be about economics, the environment, international relations, just anything that has sort of an international scope. And so we're publishing our first issue next month before finals week, ideally. We just finalize all the issues, or all of the articles, rather, that we'll be publishing in there. And it's pretty exciting, very young organization.
And JIA uses a tool that I am actually a big fan of, and has actually begun to make more inroads in Penn State itself. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I would love to tell you a little bit about that. The tool is called Yammer, and for those of you who are not familiar, Yammer is basically a mix between Facebook and Twitter, in that it has a stream of everyone's updates, and it also utilizes hashtags and notifications, private messages, things of that nature. But what separates Yammer from Facebook and Twitter is that it's unique to a domain name. So, for instance, with the Journal of International Affairs, we have our own domain name, which is psujia.org. And so all of our staff members have their own PSUJIA emails. And with Yammer, it creates a private social network just for people with those emails. So the only people who can see or participate in our discussion are people who are in our network. And so that allows us to sort of just build an online community and have it be a lot more private than it would be on Facebook or Twitter, even with Facebook groups or things of that nature. sign someone up, and they'll get an email saying you've been invited to join the PSU JIA Yammer network, and then they'll have to register an account, fill in their information, and then they'll be good to go.
Do you think Yammer has changed the way that you guys conduct your work?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's tough when you phrase it like that because we've been using Yammer since the beginning of the organization. But I can speak toward my experience with Onward State, which Davis and I, along with our other colleague Eli, co-founded about 3 years ago. Where,
Full disclosure, John Kesey is one of our senior writers.
yeah, we represent a lot of things at Onward State, But over the years, we tried using a lot of different ways to sort of build an online presence in addition to our weekly staff meetings, because news happens all the time, not just Mondays at 7:15 p.m. for an hour. So we've always been trying to build an online community, and we did that through Google Docs, we did that through Google Wave, RIP, and all sorts of other things, and we started using Yammer last year, and that took off in a big way. A lot of it is because of the social aspect of it and how similar it is to Facebook and Twitter, so there really wasn't much of a learning curve for anyone. And it's really made things very simple for both organizations to just collaborate on things and sort of get to know each other online and offline and get things done efficiently.
So can you give us maybe a scenario or an example of how you're using Yammer in either Onward State or with the journal?
Okay, sure. With the Journal of International Affairs, we have used Yammer to discuss different submissions. To give you an idea, we started a solicitation for submissions for this issue back in mid to late July. We sent it out across a bunch of different listservs on campus, and we talked to about 70 or 80 different schools across the country and got representatives from there to distribute our call for submissions on their listservs. And so over the course of the semester until our submissions closed about 3 weeks ago, we've been getting submissions in pretty much daily. We ended up with, I think, about 36 submissions to the journal when we have room for 5 to 7. And so every week we would pick somewhere between 6 to 10 of those submissions, and our entire staff, which is 10 people total, not a very big organization, would read these articles and we would discuss them at our weekly meetings. But before discussing them, we'd talk about them on Yammer first, so everyone knows what all the different submissions are, sort of what they're about, and where people stand on them, and if we want to go forward with including that submission in a future edition, or if we can skip it entirely. And that makes our weekly meetings a lot more efficient because we don't have to spend 20 minutes talking about why an article is bad. We've already agreed to it before then that it's not even worth discussing.
Now, I'm sure that the way you run JIA is very different from the way that Andrew and his associates at Thon have to manage an organization that long. Andrew, can you describe how Thon uses Google Apps to manage all its groups?
And also give us a sense of the size of the Thon organization.
All right, I'll just
Your
start.
place with them.
Okay, all right.
And
I'll
also,
start.
no.
Go ahead. All right, well, I'll just start with the hierarchy of Thon. We start with Elaine Tonella. She's the overall chairperson of the entire organization. Then we have us, the overall committee, which is 14 members. Then we have the captain level, which is what we oversee. So I have 22 captains myself. We have about 320 some captains. And then below them, not all captains have a committee themselves, but the majority of captains in Thon have committees, which range from 15 to 40 people. So that level is about 3,700 people. So overall, Thon is composed internally of about 4,000 volunteers.
Wow.
So we really rely on Google Apps extensively. Gmail, we require all of our internal volunteers to get a Gmail. Every committee signs them up for a Google group. So a Google group just allows, it's similar to a listserv, a public listserv. So, well, private, but anyone can send and reply to the listserv. So use you send a message to the group, it's disseminated to all the members of the group, and all members can reply back to that message, and again, it's disseminated to all members. So that's used just for email communication, and we have a lot of stuff that we do on Gmail to encourage. We do a lot of archiving in Gmail, so essentially, if you use Outlook, it's like archiving into a folder. We use labels in Gmail just to kind of organize everything and keep everything.
Well, and another interesting thing that Thon does is email addresses are lined up in position so that you inherit, like, say, the Tech Overall's email address at the end of the year. Is that right?
Yeah. So at the very end of the year, how it works is emails sent to technology@thon.org are just sent to or forwarded to our Gmails. So at the end of the year, when the previous overall and the current overall are transitioning, both of them will be on the email address. So when we receive a message to that address, both will be able to see it. So the outgoing overall will be able to help out the new one. But that's not only used, it's mainly used on the overall committee level, but it's also used below us. So positions that need to contact the outside world frequently. So like the bands captains who recruit bands to play at Thon events throughout the year, they could have a bands at Thon.org. So it's just a more consistent year-to-year email address that will get forwarded. So yeah, we use those. We try to use those pretty heavily.
Now, running an organization that large, making sure that everyone has access to the same information is important. How do you guys accomplish that?
That is mainly used through groups. So
does they get any of that?
Oh yeah, we use a lot of stuff very heavily. Angel, Google Groups, and Think.
So can we talk about Think? Yeah.
Yeah. So Think, it's our homegrown. Think stands for the Thon Information Network. It was developed in-house. It's a PHP MySQL web application. It's very extensive. It manages all sorts of information, such as donor information for organizations and for us, the Donor and Alumni Relations Committee. They really reach out to a lot of donors frequently, as does Supply Logistics, who seeks out in-kind donations, non-food in-kind donations, and Hospitality, which seeks out the food in-kind donations. So we retain that donor information, who contacted them, when, why. Financial information, all organizations' financial information is stored on Think. All of our volunteer information is stored. Our organizational hierarchy. Let's see. It's hard to rattle off everything because there's so much, but
what do you use
Angel is mainly for our committees. So each committee will have their own Angel group. So for instance, the overall committee, we submit weekly bullet points, which we'll talk about in our meeting. Those are due at a certain time every week. We also write weekly reports every week, and those are stored on Angel. Any documents that are relevant to the entire committee that were generated on something other than Google Docs, those are stored on Angel. Anything pertinent to the entire committee that needs to be transitioned in a year pretty much is stored online.
Yeah. And that's really just the beginning of what Thon does. Andrew could also tell you about the applications they use for Thon Weekend itself, but it's a whole other layer of stuff.
So one thing I've haven't heard anyone mention yet is Facebook. Other than saying we're not using it. Can you talk a little bit about, because that I think is probably the go-to thing that people think, oh well, college students equals Facebook use. What's the deal with that?
Well, I could just speak on behalf of Thon. We still use Facebook very heavily.
Okay.
We have a couple campaigns that we do. So over the summer we do Thon Around the World. So it just encourages our volunteers to send in pictures of them holding up their 4 Diamonds logos wherever they may be. So if they're in Barcelona, just take a picture in front of some monuments. So that's just one of the campaigns we do. We frequently post on Facebook about upcoming events. We create Facebook events. We just encourage a lot of interaction between not only our volunteers, but anyone who wants to learn about Thon.
So more for promotional purposes than for internal use?
Yeah, it's mainly promotional.
Okay. How about the rest of the group? In terms of how you use it to manage your organizations, is that something?
Yeah, I could say Paterno uses it extremely heavily, especially among the officers. We have 5 executive officers, 10 total officers, and we use Facebook almost daily. week for Illinois, we had to shut down Thursday night, and then we had to shut down Friday night. So, you know, we'll receive a call from the athletic department saying, you know, we want you guys out by 6, the temperature's supposed to be this, and you can return this time. So then we have to go use Facebook to kind of collaborate on, okay, when are we going to go out there? What are we going to tell them? When are we going to tell them to come back? You know, when should we? It's a kind of just a lot of groupthink going on,
right?
But in the Facebook thread,
okay.
And then in terms of the organization as a whole, we have a Facebook page that you know, we use for both promotional, like Don, but also informational purposes. Where if we have to shut down because of weather, you know, that's where that goes. Or if you know, reminders of when you have to be at the stadium the next day. That'll go up there. So that's been, we started doing that in 2009, and we found that to be extremely helpful, that and Twitter, in terms of informing campers, because that was a major issue.
Right.
So.
Anyone else?
As far as the Journal of International Affairs is concerned, we don't really do a lot of internal organizational management through Facebook, but I feel like our situation is sort of an anomaly, because of the 10 staff members, there are 4 executive editors / co-founders who oversee the rest of the staff. And of those 4, I'm one of the 4. Another one of the 4 is one of my roommates. Another one of the 4 lives about a block away from us, and the other one is that's a whole other story. but we can, because of our physical proximity to each other, it's very easy for us to like hold an executive editors meeting.
Yeah.
With maybe 20 seconds notice.
Hey, come in here.
Yeah, and if we were more spread out across campus, or our organization were bigger, then we'd probably have more of a Facebook management aspect. But because we're small, we're tight knit, and we're all chill bros, we can do things on the fly.
And like Turnaville and Thon, UQA and LUC both have individual pages on Facebook where they coordinate events and publicity. But I also chair a committee within UQA, and I have a Facebook group which I use to just help coordinate internally when I need to let people know something. I just post on the group, and it's more of a social aspect, just to encourage group dynamics, synergy. But I wouldn't really recommend sort of Facebook as a pedagogical tool as much, because students really do see a separation between a social network like Facebook and a communication network like Twitter. I think people are a lot more receptive to that. That being said, I know some teachers do utilize Facebook groups, and it's been successful for them. But treat carefully.
So at this point, we can open it up to questions from you all. Anyone have?
I hear you talking about Yammer. This stuff, so I would sort of like to zero in on the one that would do me the most good, and the 2 that would do me the most good. So.
Well, Yammer is really useful because it has the same sort of interface that a lot of students are used to with Facebook and Twitter. But I'm assuming you want to use this for a classroom purpose or something like that. Is that correct?
That or with relatives.
Okay. The only disadvantage with Yammer in that regard is that you would need your own domain name in order.
With relatives.
Yeah, with relatives, you would need your own sort of domain name in order to make a Yammer network. So you would have to have like myfamily.com or something where everyone has an email there in order to register for Yammer. And if you don't already have that set up, it might not be beneficial to do that, where you could do like a
Facebook group. But if you're doing it for a class and you're at Penn State, everyone here already has access to Penn State the Yammer network. If you go to yammer.com and create an account with your official Penn State email address, you'll be signed up.
How many people are already on Yammer?
And so you can do that even if you're not interacting, you just poke around. And once you're in that network, you you can create a group that's limited to just your class, and you can use that as a space within the larger Penn State Yammer network to manage your course.
Yeah, and it's a nice way between balancing like what John talked about earlier with the sort of social aspect of Facebook with the professional aspect of course management system.
What about Google Plus circles? Don't do that for classes like Facebook. I'm just curious.
Well, right now Google Plus is hard because it doesn't have much buy-in. A lot of students who do have even Gmail, a lot of students don't all have Gmail, and even the ones that do aren't excited about having to adopt another social network. So Google Plus right now in its current form has a lot of my more bleeding, cutting-edge friends on it, and so it is a lot of technological, philosophical, political discussion, but it has a very limited audience. So while it is a great product, it's having trouble with mass appeal. And to the extent of Facebook groups, not a bad idea, perfect for relatives. Oh, I highly recommend that for relatives for Facebook. But I think something like Yammer or a good Angel group. Angel isn't the best platform, but it has a lot of potential for usage. I utilize Angel for my committee just in terms of information output, documents up there. So it depends on the level of involvement you want. If it's something you can just put, throw away and let students access, Angel is great for that, but when you really need the interaction for it, something like Facebook or Yammer or Twitter is really better.
And that involvement is where I think Yammer really comes into play. Like at Onward State, we're really looking for people to be logging in once or twice, if not more, per day to our Yammer network. We get 300, 400, 500 messages posted every day on our Yammer network that are just from Onward State staffers.
I personally don't subscribe to the login once or twice a day model. I subscribe to the stay logged in all day. Don't leave model. I have the app on my phone. I have a desktop app on my computer. Whenever I'm near technology, Yammer's there.
And you actually read 500 Yammer clips or what they call it.
Yams is what we call it.
Well, and it's actually a lot more efficient than email because as leaders in our organization, we can go in and get a bird's eye view of everything that's happening within each of the different, people. So it's a lot quicker.
Let me ask a follow-up question to the how many people are on Yammer. So everyone that said they were on Yammer, raise their hand. How many people would say they use Yammer daily? Okay. How about weekly? All right. So there's that. Because I think one of the dangers is, and you kind of touched on it, is that you have so many of these tools, and especially at Penn State, it seemed like the Yammer is definitely on an upswing in terms of its adoption. But it seemed like that upswing happened kind of at the same time that Google Plus came on the market, and at least in our organization, we had just decided to let's make a concentrated effort to adopt Yammer, but then, oh, look at this shiny thing over here with the Google Plus. Let's do that now too. And are we on Yammer, or are we on Google Plus, or what are we doing? So it's helpful to think about the benefits of each one and figure out which one is most tied into what your goals are, instead of trying to do them all. Right.
So you've all talked about collaborative tools that you as a group or your organizations have decided to use. Could you maybe compare and contrast that a little bit when you try to do any type of collaborative effort in the classroom? So, meaning, do you wish that something that your organization was doing could find some way to filter in, and are there any sort of lessons there?
Speaking from my experience, I think most of what Fraternal does is what we use in class anyway. Because we heavily use Angel, which we obviously use for class. In terms of Facebook, usually if I'm working on a project, like a group project, we'll have a Facebook thread to discuss it. much in the same way that we do as officers to discuss fraternal stuff. So I can't really touch on, from my experience personally, we probably use the same stuff that we use in class anyway. So it's been very similar.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for just similar to what he said with group projects, I usually just create Google for group projects. And then when we get together, or if we don't get together, to work on documents at the same time. We can have a meeting time, just a virtual meeting time, so we all get on the document at 8 p.m. And someone mentioned before, chat on the document, and just all work on it at the same time, collaboratively. We have a Gmail thread going on, so we can just stay in constant contact. Another thing that actually I don't think anyone was brought up was GroupMe. Sometimes I create GroupMes. My committee has one for Thon. I have a bunch of other ones. But for a group project even, I set up a GroupMe for our project. And what GroupMe is it's similar to a Google group, but it's over texting. So when you text this group, the text is sent to all members of the group, and yeah, as well.
I can say that we use that for onward state, and you
We have one for PSCJA. And the other good thing about GroupMe is that everyone's phone numbers are hidden in it. So if you're a teacher and you feel weird about giving your phone number to students in your class, or vice versa, like I know I wouldn't really want to give my phone number to some of my teachers. But not any of you. I'm sure you're wonderful, terrific people. But
so what is your phone number?
we'll talk about it. But yeah, you can give out your phone number there, and no one will see your phone number, and you'll still be able to participate in the GroupMe, which is pretty cool.
Other hands?
This is kind of a follow-up to Ryan's question. When you guys talk about something other than Angel, say, it's Google Docs, it's Yammer, is the response generally positive? I mean, are you able to convince people to do that? Is it kind of like, why don't we just use email for that? I mean, you guys are leaders, right? You're organized and clearly ahead of the game. Do most of the students in group projects and things like that, are they willing to try this stuff? Do they already know what it is? Are they familiar with it? What is the response you guys see?
I mean, there is a learning curve, so things like Gmail are more widely used than things like Yammer. So, but students generally are pretty receptive to new technologies, unless they're afforded by the university, stuff like Kalikow. But I think when you already have student buy-in to something, it's generally easier to convince them of its usability and usefulness. When you already have students like this panel who are effectively efficiently using these technologies, it's easier to convince people that this is useful, and you can sit down and show them.
That was kind of
And from my experience, there's sort of the opposite way of how you phrased your question, not as in why use these new technologies when Angel or something already exists, but why would you use Angel when these new technologies, like when my organization started, we said like the first day, okay, we're going to use Google Docs for things, and everyone's like, okay, cool. And if I were to have said we're going to use Angel groups to disseminate information, everyone would be like, huh. look at this guy in this Stone Age. Are you going to use a GeoCities page too? in your AOL internet browser? So there's already sort of a built-in familiarity. I can't speak. Familiarity. That word is, there's already that with new technology.
Yeah. And I mean, that was really, one of the ideas behind this session is just that this is just really the tip of the iceberg in terms of how student organizations are utilizing new technologies to go about their business. And it's really the bleeding edge in terms of technology. And so one of the things that will be interesting to see is how do these uses trickle down to faculty over the next 5 years.
Actually, I have a question that follows up on that. So you guys are choosing to use this technology when you have an assignment from a class independently, outside of the class, you're saying, let's do this. Are you getting any assignments where your faculty are saying, let's do this in Google Docs? Let's use, are all your assignments being turned in an Angel and organized around Angel? Or are any of them coming out of these other tools?
Pretty much Angel, from my speed from Spiel's perspective, I guess. It's really all we have.
Yeah, from my experiences, the use of Google Docs and similar tools have been sort of out of necessity. Like, a teacher has never said to me, hand in this assignment, you'll need Microsoft Word to type it up in order to submit it. They'll say, like, here's where you need to submit it, and then it's like, oh, well, obviously I would use Google Docs to use this to collaborate with people. That's, like, faculty members never, like I said, use Google Docs, because it's never really been necessary, at least for me.
So to follow up on that, like, there isn't really a lot of direction given to you in general. It's just, you know, here's the assignment, figure out a way to do it, more or less.
Yeah,
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I think the adoption of Google products is more out of ease and necessity rather than any sort of trickle down from faculty of directing students to these resources. You know, you don't really have faculty saying, hey, Google Docs, this is a great resource that you can use to collaborate with people. It's more of students saying, hey, we should really work on this group project by, you know, creating a presentation, a group presentation. We can meet up and use Google Hangout to like talk with each other and see what we're working on. Or a group meeting saying, hey, meet us here at this time so that we can get this done. But there's no faculty, you know, input. It's more of student-born innovation.
Do you want the faculty input helping you direct that kind of stuff, or you don't?
It'd be helpful, I think. Sometimes in group projects I've found that people are hesitant to use Google Docs or don't even know what it is and don't want to try it now, even though it's incredibly easy to use. It makes life a lot easier for you to complete the project. So I would appreciate if we had a little more direction in that, just because people, I think certain students, not necessarily all students, would be more willing to adopt it if they had that kind of like, okay, well, if they mentioned that, maybe I'll take a look.
Right. So we've got some endorsement from the faculty.
And I don't necessarily think that faculty need to be on the cutting edge. You don't need to know like the brand new product, but if you have students using Google Docs in their classrooms, and you know that, and you're aware of that, and you know that it's being successfully used, then encourage students in the next semester and the next year to explore those options, just as a general direction, not like an order, like use Google Docs, but students in the past classes have utilized this successfully. It's a great resource. Try it out.
Can we talk about any challenges that you might have encountered in the use of these in your various organizations?
Well, I guess one of the biggest issues for Google Docs for us is you can't do everything in them. We still have to do a lot of documents outside of Google Docs just because it has a limited formatting capabilities. You have to go into Microsoft Word to create these documents, and you have to send them over the group thread to have them approved. And just revisioning is a lot more difficult in that regard.
I think that moving to these types of platforms, such as Yammer, to coordinate our operations, has really introduced a new challenge for leaders in the organization, and that is watching the space and protecting it, making sure that it stays a space that has values in line with organizations. I know that at Oregon State, there have been a couple times where I've had to respond to things posted on our Yammer network that shouldn't have been posted on that type of network. And it's just a new type of problem I have.
It's sort of an interesting progression over time to see it, where first Yammer will be introduced and people will be like, oh, another social network, I have to learn everything. Then they'll see that they can like things and get notifications when they get likes. Like, oh, cool, now people can respond to me and I'll get notifications. Red squares at the top of my browser are awesome, which is something, it's an unspoken thing, but
I
it
mean,
feels
that's
good to get.
gamification right there.
Yeah.
so then they'll sort of get like high off of that and be like, oh, now I'm gonna go amok and post all sorts of funny, wacky things on Yammer, and then if it's not curved, then it just turns into a cesspool. But if you manage to control it, then it's a good balance between.
It's like any other online community.
Yeah, like on Untitled State, we have a group on Yammer called Loud Noises, which is where you can go to say things that aren't related to Untitled State at all. Like, hey, you guys going to trade next week? Or things. and that was not an invitation on my part. But I do appreciate that. But yeah, it's a way to talk about things that aren't related to the work while still sort of doing that. And are we allowed to call people for questions, or is that
there we go. Yeah, you're not trained.
As a classroom instructor using Angel, I can set up team space as well. Is that something that's helpful? Does it marry with Google Docs, or you don't really need it because you have Google Docs? Or I'm just wondering, is this a space where I can say, okay, only these five people in my class can put stuff in there, and you can keep it there then for submitting and whatever.
I mean, it's not as much about the fact that these things that we're talking about are limited to 5 people, but rather that it's better technology.
I think the problems with Angel utilizing that are enough professors don't utilize the full extent of Angel. I mean, Angel is not the greatest platform, but even that, even the limitations of Angel aren't reached by professors. And so because of that, students don't really look to Angel as a platform that they can really engage with professors to that extent where they have the team. So I think creating that and trying that, I mean, go for it, but make sure that you're giving students enough notice of what you expect of them and how you expect them to utilize it. Because they're probably not going to be familiar with that because it's a very rare instance of professors trying to utilize it.
Okay, see, so to me, it makes totally logical for me I have teams in my class. It's totally logical that they would have that team space. But and I figure, oh, well, they know how to use it, it's Angel. So that's good feedback for me, that I should say, look, here's your team space, here's what you can do with it. And so you don't have to use it, but it might be helpful.
Yeah, that's sort of direction we do have.
How many of your instructors at Faculty actually ask you what you're using outside the classroom besides what they're using as far as Angel? Or would you advise them that they should be asking their students?
I don't think, I'm trying to think of a time when I have been asked. It's rare it does happen.
But would you feel that it would be useful if they are asking these questions? I hear everyone saying that, hey, we use Google Docs. Let's use them in the classroom, but faculty aren't having to use them for that. And is it because they just don't know?
I don't think it would hurt any. I think, I mean, obviously, faculty get to see the final product, but they don't necessarily get to see the whole process. I think seeing how the process occurred, it can't hurt any.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful a lot more to faculty than it would be to students, because I'll use Google Docs for group projects all the time, regardless. But some of the faculty might not even know that Google Docs are a thing.
I think the reason why knowing about them is important is because it does make you work differently. I can say 100% that Almond State functions differently today than it did a year ago because of and you need to understand the technology to appreciate that.
Good. One more question.
Penn State, invested a lot of resources, I think, in their blog tool, PSU blog. And one of the big foci was to have students use it to develop their e-portfolios. haven't heard you guys mention PSP blogs much. Are you developing an electronic portfolio, and if so, what tool are you guys using?
Well, I personally don't maintain a blog myself. I don't know many other students who really see an e-portfolio as essential to their academic or professional lives. But I do use the Penn blogging format with classes that require it, and to blog for the Liberal Arts Undergraduate Council and the Liberal Arts Undergraduate Studies. And I also blog as part of other task forces that I do with administrators, but I don't think they use the Penn State blog format. I think I understand that Penn State invests a lot of it, and it is a good baseline, but it isn't really what you need to be doing. If you take blogging seriously, there are other websites you can use in terms of like Blogger, WordPress, mass marketed tools that aren't necessarily Penn State specific, but offer like serious bloggers more tools. So on a base level, yes, it's good for students to get an introduction to blogging, but serious bloggers who really want to develop a serious online persona in terms of an e-portfolio will move to other platforms, I think. That's just my
I mean, I would tend to agree. We use the Tumblr for our Thon blog. We're actually moving away from that. We're going to move the blog in-house. Our website is managed by Drupal, which has a native blogging engine, which we're going to start utilizing. Just so it's in our domain, it's not thonblog.tumblr.com. It'll be either blog.thon.org or thon.org/blog. That's the main motivation to do that.
Anyone else? I'll generally agree with what John said about how Penn State's blogging platform is a good baseline and a good starting point, but I have two main issues with the way it works. The first is that it's hosted on Penn State, which certainly isn't Penn State's fault or anything like that, but as someone who would write content, I sometimes will feel stifled knowing that I'm writing on Penn State, and I'll just automatically get into like a mindset where I'll just start saying things like, oh, Penn State is the greatest place. Everything is fine. And that always sort of just feels stifling when you're trying to throw out your thoughts. So that's one issue. And the other is that the blogs at Penn State platform is powered by Movable Type, and Movable Type is an awful service. I'll be blunt with that. I do not like it at all. It's not technologically robust. It crashes all the time. I once wrote a 700-word blog post for a class. I was uploading an image to go along with it because I'm all about multimedia in the Web 2.0 age. And while it was uploading, Movable Type crashed, and I lost my entire 700-word blog post. And that's something that would never happen on WordPress, where it automatically saves every 30 seconds or so. If that happened on WordPress, I'd lose, I don't know, 10, 20 words. And so that's why I like WordPress better. And that's sort of a roundabout way of answering the initial question, but yeah, WordPress.
All right. Well, with that, the session brought to you by WordPress.com.